I keep saying it, boxing is the entertainment business. And when people get all upset about YouTubers and other celebrities getting involved in boxing, I say to them, you don't really understand what boxing has been about since the very beginning. You really think that when Queensberry Rules boxing first started, the vast majority of fans who came to watch were somehow purists of pugilism? No, they were people who came to watch and see who the toughest guy in their local city was, neighborhood, country, in America, state. That's what they came to see. And so boxing since the very beginning has always been about entertainment first and foremost. It's been about, obviously, the spectacle of warrior versus warrior. Yeah. This pugilist, how can I describe it? Snobbery, which some boxing fans have now, is really a later thing. It came much later in boxing, and it was really, I want to say, encouraged or cultivated by the media, certainly the print media, and then later on the broadcast media. But when it comes to the fans have always just wanted entertainment. They've always just wanted to see knockouts. They've always wanted to see something spectacular in the ring. They've always wanted to watch entertaining and engaging characters fight it out. And that's what we have here with Jake Paul and his rivalry with Tommy Fury. You got two characters who have built up big followings on social media. Jake Paul obviously being basically a troll along with his brother Logan Paul, and they made it big that way. And Tommy Fury is the son, well, he's the son of John Fury, who's a very entertaining character in his own right, but he's also the younger brother of the WBC World Heavyweight Champion Tyson Fury. So, he's got a lot of fans behind him because of that, and also because of the fact he was on Love Island, and he would have gained a lot more publicity and notoriety in the States through this rivalry with Jake Paul. Now, I say all that to say this. Jake Paul has confirmed, according to TalkSport, that Tommy Fury is the opponent he wants to fight next. I hope this happens. I'm going to come out and say it. I don't care what people think. I don't care about the boxing snobs and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you the truth. This is one of my favorite fights in boxing. Yes, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. I like the fight. Why? Because you got two young guys, similar age, similar level of experience. People talk about Tommy Fury boxing since he was a young kid. He only had about 12 amateur fights. Okay, so in terms of actual fights, they've had a similar level of experience. Obviously, Jake Paul hasn't had any amateur fights. Actually, he didn't he? What was that fight that he had against KSI's brother? That was one amateur fight, maybe. So anyway, neither guy's got a lot of experience, amateur or pro. So, I always say that there's entertainment to be had at all levels in boxing. The boxing snobs who only ever want to watch elite level world champions, I can't relate to you. Yeah, I like watching elite level boxing, but I also like watching entertaining boxing at a lower level. I like watching heavyweight fights, for example, which are a much lower level than the elite if it's a good style matchup and it's going to result in fireworks and fun and games, right? Now with Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, when you got two young guys like this with a chip on their shoulder, and you got one guy in Tommy Fury who I sincerely believe doesn't rate Jake Paul, that right there is a recipe for a good fight. When the two guys haven't really come to terms with their own mortality yet, and they got chips on their shoulders and they're young and they're full of testosterone, that's generally when you get the most fireworks in a fight. This is what I said. Remember, I've mentioned this many times before. This is what I said in the lead up to the Anthony Joshua Dillian Whyte fight. When was that? Back in 2015 or something? I made a video that year, several months before the AJ White fight, because it was the same year that Mayweather Pacquiao happened. I believe it was the same year. And I made a video, which is still up on this channel, where I said that I'm looking forward to AJ versus Dillian Whyte more than Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And a lot of people were upset with me. A lot of people accused me of lying, of just saying contrarian things to, I don't know for what reason they think I want to be contrarian for the sake of it. No, not at all. I understood that Mayweather Pacquiao was long past its sell-by date, and that fight was not going to be anywhere near as exciting as all the hype would have you believe. But with AJ and Dillian Whyte, two young guys, two raw guys, green, wet behind the ears, but loads of testosterone, chips on their shoulders, trying to prove themselves in the game. That had a recipe for a great fight, right? The history that the two guys had, right? Their beef in the Klitschko camp, the amateur fight where AJ was dropped, and then, revelations came out afterwards that Dillian Whyte had a load of kickboxing fights prior because he was matched with AJ because both guys had a similar number of amateur boxing matches, right? But later on, AJ is saying, well, I found out this guy's had loads of kickboxing fights, and that's the reason that he couldn't continue as an amateur. AJ felt a certain way about that, like he shouldn't have been put in there against that guy who was so much more experienced than him. So there was a whole background, there was a beef, and it was genuine, and it showed up in the fight. It was a very, very fiery affair. Now, obviously, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, well, actually, no. I was going to say Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are less experienced than AJ and Dillian Whyte. Yes, they're both less experienced than AJ for sure. But Dillian Whyte, again, how many amateur fights did he have? About 11 or something? So Dillian Whyte's the same level of experience as a Tommy Fury, right? If you're talking about turning pro, So I think that there are not necessarily parallels between AJ, Dillian Whyte in this fight, but in general, when you get two young guys going up against each other like this, their fan bases are all gassing them up, and they're too young to know better. They're too young to realize that actually this could be a really tough fight. That's when you get the most entertainment. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm glad that Jake Paul has said that Tommy Fury may well be his next opponent. I'm going to quote him here. He said, he's skilled, he's undefeated, and he's a real boxer. He has 4 million followers on Instagram, which is good engagement. He has the fans from his relationship thing. They fell in love on a show. Tommy Fury, this guy comes from a legendary boxing bloodline. He's undefeated, and he's the same height as me, same age approximately. And I'm sitting here saying, yo, let's run it up. So, yep, this is what I like to hear. The fact that Jake Paul is bigging Tommy Fury up is perhaps indicative of the fact that he is serious about fighting him sooner rather than later. Because when you don't want to fight a guy, you tend to be dismissive, right? You tend to say, nobody wants to see him. He's no good. This, that. But when you start bigging a guy up, that's usually when you end up fighting him, unless this is some type of reverse psychology by Jake Paul, we'll see. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. A fun little fight between two young guys trying to prove themselves in the game. I'll definitely watch it. So it is what it is.